it's Soups All Dragons.
Hey.
Hello? Good morrow. It is us. It's the podcast about D&D. Episode 37 is the podcast about D&D and tabletop and role-playing and nerdy shit. And
life
I'm
in
Lisa.
South Florida.
Yeah, and just like salt life. I don't know.
Oh, and I'm Varun. Yep. Here again.
Did I say my name? I'm Lisa?
Yes, you did.
Yes. Hi. What are you? What's good with you? What's hi? I'm still hungover. It's a problem. It never happens. I just like it doesn't when I don't go out much very often, and when I do, I never drink enough to actually like feel any effects by the next morning. But this past evening was our friend of the podcast, Austin. He is moving out of Los Angeles, and last night was his going away party / birthday party, and actually my car is still over there because I had to be driven home. And I'm feeling it. I was already dehydrated because I had like spent all day at Ren Fair and I was not drinking enough water, and then I got to Austin's and I was just like,
oh, Lisa.
I was immediately handed I was immediately handed a shot of gin.
Okay.
And I hate gin, but you know what? I'm down to clown, so I did that, and
you were in the mood.
I'm suffering. But it's fine. I'm here. I'm having a great time. I just ate a dozen pot stickers.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm caffeinated. I'm here. I'm here to party. Part 2.
You've been jacked up on caffeine. All right. I
have drank more water today. I will say that.
I am here as well. Overall, it's been a interesting week. Dealing with the American healthcare system.
Woohoo.
Yep, not going to go into that. Just that's what's been going on there.
Yeah, that's all you need to say is just like American healthcare system, and everybody in the room winced.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about Multiverse of Monsters, Mordenkainen, Multiverse of Monsters, the new source book coming out, as well as the D&D Beyond Wizards merger. But before we get too deep into that, is there anything you've been watching, reading, anything else you want to talk about, Lisa, beyond your rampant debauchery?
I want to talk about Florence the Machine's new album.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, I'm like, it's kind of, it's my entire brain capacity is just that right now. Like,
okay,
it's
I have
so
heard
good.
Nothing of this new album as of yet. I will listen to it at some point. When I get a moment and I remember. But what's the impression?
It feels a little bit like reading somebody's diary, but also being like, wow, so relatable.
Okay.
It talks very like I've been reading a lot of like interviews and stuff, and like watching interviews that she's given about the process of this album, and like, you know, there's 2 or 3 of the songs that she wrote before the pandemic and that like she had been working on, and then, you know, the pandemic hit, she had to go back to London, and she went through this interesting like arc where she was like kind of burnt out on performing, but then like once, you know, the pandemic hit and like she couldn't perform, she couldn't even go into the studio, and like she wasn't even able to write. And so like the arc of the album is a little bit like exercising herself of the demon of performing and writing and being the persona of Florence and the Machine. And then like the second half of the album is kind of like begging for it to come back once she couldn't have it anymore. And that's really interesting. And then there's like a lot of it deals a lot with her conflicting feelings of like wanting to settle down and start a family versus her innate desire to keep creating and keep working as a performer.
Nice.
And then also like her anxiety and her agoraphobia and just like a reflection of like her feelings about the world at the moment. And I don't know, it all feels very like relevant, but also she's very good at making things at writing these songs that like I feel like there are a couple of songs on this album that are going to be timeless, even though like right now we're sitting in it and like you see you read the lyrics, you hear the song, and it feels very much like, yeah, this is definitely about the pandemic, COVID, whatever. Specifically the song Daffodil, which has this theme of like because, you know, the shutdown started happening in March of 2020, and that's right in spring, and Daffodil is about seeing the spring of 2021 come around and realizing there's this intrinsic optimism that comes during spring, but in that moment, in March of 2021, there was this hopelessness of feeling like there was never going to be an end to this, that it was just going to keep going. And it's like that the feeling of like spring is supposed to bring, you know, rebirth, renewal, and, you know, this dark time, you know, the winter is supposed to be behind us, this dark, depressing time is supposed to be behind us. And here is the spring showing us all of the signs of rebirth and renewal, but we are still in this dark, depressing time, but we do need to look towards the future. I don't know. It's beautiful. This album's just fucking beautiful, dude.
Sounds like it.
And yes, I have already assigned a couple of the songs off this album to my D&D characters. Duh.
Okay.
The Blorbo from my shows.
It sounds extremely personal.
Yeah, it's very personal. It's where like my favorite album of hers is Ceremonials, and like a lot of the songs on that are very like they're still personal. Like her writing style is intrinsically very personal, but they're more broad and they're more like the language is more flowery and poetic. Where like this one, it feels like she's just like sitting there like telling you exactly what happened. Like it's still, there is still this poetic thing to her writing style, but it feels simpler than her previous albums. I don't know, I'm just saying words. I'm a film major, I'm not a music commentary person, but Florence the Machine is like, Varun, you know this, Florence the Machine is like, that's my god. That's I was talking to one of my
worship at the altar.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my coworkers this week, and he described he was like, yeah, he's not really like a person who goes to shows or anything, but like there are some people that you go and see them, and when you see them live, it feels like a piece of your soul is put back in place, and that was what it felt like when I went to her show, her Ceremonials tour. That was like the first show I'd ever been to, and like fuck, like, yeah, that was like the perfect way of describing it. Okay. So I don't know, I'm very happy with it, and like that's kind of what's been consuming my media consumption time.
Nice. I will definitely give it a listen at some point. Yeah, sounds super interesting. And as for me, I have been listening to something else on the like exact opposite end of the spectrum of anything. I really got into the Trash Taste podcast. I don't know if you heard of them.
No.
They were fairly big. I think it was started 3-4 years ago, like right before the pandemic. And it's mainly 3 YouTubers / streamers who did certain things around Japan. So 2 of them were fairly anime focused. One dude is like half Japanese, so like he grew up in Japan, like that's his first language. And then another dude is from the UK, who does voice acting. And the three of them all have it's ostensibly started off as an anime podcast, but it's really like they became friends, many years ago, and this is just them throwing their personalities together and doing a show. Like the first episode they talk about anime, second episode they start talking about like completely other things. And I like their I like their show. It's ostensibly a bunch of foreigners, even though one of them's from there, but he speaks perfect English. In Japan, living in Japan. Some of them working like in the anime industry, others like making their livings off of the anime industry. But they, in their channels themselves, they explore a lot of the cultural aspects of Japan, usually in a funny way. They'll go to like weird bars. A lot of them will go to like weird bars. They'll do like weird food challenges that you can only do in Japan, like eating the largest gyoza in the world or something like that. I
think I would kill that one, honestly.
I can send you the video. You'll see. You'll be like, no, that's as big as my head. I literally can't eat that.
Hold on, let me Google this.
To type in abroad in Japan, gyoza challenge. There's two of them. One is like a bunch of really like jumbo ones, and one is as like it's a child. You'd be eating like a small child's worth of gyoza in one. So they'll like it's mainly entertainment. It's mainly like fun and games. They'll do like quizzes, or they'll do their rankings of things. It's just three good personalities put together. And then they'll do special episodes like where they will where they'll take like some of the budget of the show, and they're gonna go hit a bunch of places in Akihabara, and they have to get like a bunch of weird figures, and they put all these weird rules in place. So they have to get like an anime, like a Dragon Ball figure, an Evangelion figure. Sometimes they have to get very, very lewd things, and it's pretty fun. So I've been getting into that. I've been getting into their content. Just good listens overall. And they a few weeks ago, I think they did a 24-hour live stream for Ukraine humanitarian relief, and they raised like over $100,000, maybe $150,000, just doing a 24-hour like Twitch stream of them just doing stuff. And it's just them. Like, they'll play games and stuff, but it's not like I describe it as similar, like Game Grumps type of humor, but they don't do anything with video games. Like, they don't play video games. It's them just on camera talking, and it's just like a fun podcast. So I've been going through their stuff, and looking at some of the cultural aspects of living in Japan too, because like again, they're foreigners, so they come from places with different cultures, and they go to like a gay bar in Japan, and what is that like, and what is it like for gay people in Japan, because they have this weird contradiction in their constitution that specifically outlines marriages between a man and a woman, but also they have a clause in there, like the overall, I think, first clause of their constitution is all Japanese have, the same rights, have equal rights. So that's like one of the biggest like fights that's going on in that country now, to get marriage equality and to get the courts to, interpret the Constitution in a way that's equal for everyone. It's and they they have an episode where they go to a gay bar and they talk to a bunch of gay men about that. And yes, they will also sing anime songs in that same episode, but then they'll get deep into like, okay, what's it like coming out to your parents as a Japanese gay man, and like how much more of a stigma you can have in Japan, and something like that. So it's all very interesting stuff. I'm not going to throw it out there as like it's all this big, cultural study and everything. It's not. Some of it is just them talking bullshit. just either talking about anime or I don't know, rating all the beers internationally and just watching them, degrade over time through all the beers that they drank. There's episodes like that. And there's other episodes where they get into like, some kind of deep shit. And it's just a good listen. So I would absolutely recommend. But that's what I have been listening to.
Well, you know what I don't know that much about at the moment, but I really should, is news about D&D, such as Mordenkainen's Multiverse of Monsters. Let's get into it. So, we've got a new source book that's not really new. It's just replacing 2 source books, and
the boilerplate, what Mordenkainen's Multiverse of Monsters covers. It's a compilation source book out now that combines a lot of the bestiary stuff from Volo's Guides for Monsters and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, as well as the races like the Hernandez from Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
Yeah, and the fairy as well.
Yep. So a couple, the race options from a couple books combined into one, as well as all the bestiary options from those books as well, combined into one place. So it's like a new version, a bestiary version, essentially, of Tasha's.
Yeah. I mean, what's nice is that, like, if you hadn't already bought Tome of Foes or Volo's Guide to Monsters, you can just buy this book.
Yes.
And you'll get everything and more from both of those books.
I think this is a Tasha situation where this is probably for, like, Adventurers League, where all these other race options and and NPCs and everything were scattered around all these different sources. So they compiled them into one place, and they want to kind of streamline, rejuvenate that Adventurers League scene.
Yeah, that makes it much more usable, for sure. The thing that I want to talk about is how on D&D Beyond they're removing Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and Volo's Guide to Monsters, which, like, if you're just using them for the, like, the content of, like, the monsters, the races and stuff, it's fine. But those books do have, like, a lot of, like, bits of, like, lore and description and world building scattered throughout. I
will clarify, they're delisting the books after a certain date, so new folks won't be able to buy them. They'll have to buy Multiverse of Monsters if they want to get that content. But folks who already have that book, they'll be in their compendium forever. It'll still be part of their account. They're not taking away anything that's already there.
Yeah, if you already have it, you can still share it with your campaign. You can still access it. It's like, if you don't already have it, this is kind of your last chance to get it.
Yeah. So and I was actually doing some comparisons. So it's not just a 1-to-1 transfer. They have updated some of the definitely a lot of the stat blocks for the monsters. I can't even get into each and every one, because there's so many monsters, and there's over almost over like 300, I think. There's a lot. So they just updated stat blocks on some of the monsters, but then also on the races themselves. They've also updated the kind of starting stats or streamlined certain things about some of the races. So, especially because this focuses on fantastical races, they've upgraded, like, if you're playing an Arakocra, you now have the Windcaller ability. Or, in the previous books, if you wanted to play an Aasimar, there were a bunch of different variants of Aasimar. Now there is one Aasimar race that gets all of the things that all the other variants
I was just looking at that. The Necrotic Shroud and the Radiant Consumption, those were different
those are the Fallen Aasimar.
Those were the features of different variations on the Aasimar. Now it's just flavor how you like it.
Yeah, and I think that's good that they streamline this for some of these races, because I think 5e had gotten to the point variant
it's
bloat.
Getting very bloated.
Yeah. So I think streamlining a lot of these is a good move. Like, again, if you want those older versions, you can get the legacy Volos or whatever, and you can use that as well. But we played with someone who plays an Aasimar, and if they could have just all three of their Aasimar things at once, they'd be like, hell yes, and I could just choose which one I want.
Yeah,
because they jumped around variants until they found one that they liked. So I think that's good, but they also kept race specific variants for the races where it makes the most amount of sense, I think. So like the colors and the materials for the Dragonborns that we talked about during Fizzbands, those are all still as they are. But then also the Genasi. The Genasi are still split up per element. And that definitely makes sense because that's their thing. Genasis look different because of their element. Genasis operate differently because of their elements, so it makes sense to have dedicated sub races for them versus do we really need all these Aasimar variants or all these other like wacky just variants of races that
like the Eladrin and the Duergar. This book does not have Dragonborn as one of the race options, but that's because we just got Fizzband, so we don't need another book that has Dragonborn stuff in it. Like, we got a whole Dragon book.
It drastically expanded them, so it didn't need more, and they probably shouldn't immediately curtail it after releasing all of that content.
Yeah, but I do like that like you said earlier, it does include the fairy and the Haragon and the satyr. This is definitely like, if you want to, because how like some people, they'll run a game where they're like, you can pick from 3 of the source books, and like those are the source books for the game, which is definitely, again, there's a lot of source books and there's a lot of campaigns. Like paring it down and saying like, these are the source books we're going to use really simplifies things
up until now, because I think at this point you could do Player's Handbook, Tasha's, and this, and you're pretty much covered.
And this is definitely the book to include if you have players who want to play non-traditional races. Because all the fun ones are here. You got Minotaurs, you got Tabaxi, you got Tritons, you got Yuan-Ti.
Centaurs have been upgraded a bit as well. And they're made a lot more useful versus a lot of the, like I mentioned, variants before. They're basically streamlined and juiced up now. I keep coming back to the Aasimar because that one jumped out at me because it's such an older one. Yeah, just like how versatile it is right now. Like I'd want to play one of those. That looks really cool.
Yeah, and it does something I just noticed is, so like they had the listing for the Eladrin as a race, and then they have a listing for the Eladrin as in the bestiary as a monster if you have like an enemy, and then so as a race it's just the one thing, but then as a monster you have your 4 seasons, right? Your autumn, spring, summer, winter.
Yep.
So you as a DM, you can see that, and you can choose to incorporate some of those like the traits that are in the monster stat block into like the character stat block if you have a player who is looking to
tweak it,
play an Eladrin. Yeah,
and I was going to bring that up too. I think at this point versus some of the older books, there's the custom lineage that they've introduced. So if someone wants to just, this has always been a thing, but now the books have a way to just like hack the existing races and kind of make your own variants from there, make it a little easier, at least especially for newer folks. That's there now, so there doesn't need to be that many like spelled out variants in the books anymore, because I think and you can definitely see it with newer folks coming in. There's that paralysis of choice when they're creating a character. A human, especially for a newer person in general, like a human is probably the best to play to start, but then they see like 50 odd potential races they could be. They're like, I don't want to seem lame, but I don't know what all these are. But I want to pick one, but I don't. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a paralysis of too much choice.
Yeah, I like it. Would it be a buy? Like I bought it obviously because I have the content on D&D Beyond because I already had Volos and I already had Mordenkainen. It for like older for older groups or older players who don't have a limit on the amount of source books that they're using and aren't. Again, you don't need a new bestiary, an updated bestiary, and you don't need updated race stats. Probably not a for sure buy for you. Although I do like Tasha's snappy commentary that's woven in between this book because it is Mordenkainen's book, but Tasha is his greatest rival. So her commentary is woven throughout the thing. And one of them I think I remember was Mordenkainen gains his knowledge from defeating enemies. But has he ever tried to just ask one for a drink? Some of the best secrets from monsters I've ever gotten is from just drinking with them. The other ones I just disintegrated. Something along those lines. I was like, you know what? This is why I buy these books. I like the new updated stats, and I like the new streamlined race options. But yeah, Fizban talking shit about Tiamat in Fizban's book. Tasha again being all being snip snappy in this one. That at least for me that makes it worth it. And I can get rid of the legacy stuff. Yeah, make games work a little easier in the future.
Yeah, and you can decide for yourself whether you want to just keep using the the older versions or the newer versions.
Or both.
World's your oyster. Yeah. Whatever is easier for you to keep track of in your mind. If you are a D&D Beyond user, again, we talk about this damn website way too much for not getting a penny from them. Not a penny. Anyways, I mean, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Not use it? Not talk about it? Yeah. No. It's a useful tool. Like, sincerely. Anyways, not my point. If you've ever used it, but only ever just, like, used it for, the mechanical features and haven't actually looked at the posts and articles on there, there's actually a lot of really good, useful information in there. Great advice from people. They're staff writers. I don't know if they have a staff of writers. I don't know.
They do. They have, like, lore keepers and stuff, and they'll do articles.
Yeah, okay, great. So, their writers, they're good. There's some pretty good articles, like, I've used some tips and tricks from, like, there's an article on, like, skill challenges and how to make travel more interesting. And anyways, my point is they do have a post on there that explains, where is it? It's like the FAQ for Monsters of the Multiverse, and it explains, like, if you want to access the legacy version of a creature or a race type or whatever, like, it explains basically everything you need to know of, like, how to navigate it, how to navigate around this new source book. That is to say, I feel like things have gotten to kind of I don't want to say a breaking point, but I'm really curious to see from here on out how they will continue to incorporate new books, because there's too damn many.
There's a lot of books.
There's a lot of books. And, like, it's even getting to the point where, like, yes, D&D Beyond made it so much easier, makes it so much easier to access and keep track of and make sense of all of the books, but it's even getting to a point where it's even making D&D Beyond cumbersome. Because there's just too much. Because now you have to worry about, like, oh god, did I choose Legacy version of Aasimar or the Mordenkainen's, or, and there's
and part of that is like, and I don't think any of that's D&D Beyond. Okay, part of it is, I think, D&D Beyond, just because, and they will, and the developers will freely admit this, there is some jank in the system. It's been there since the beginning, and they're just now starting to address it because of the merger, which we're about to get into. But also part of it is Wizards themselves. They're just cranking out these books. We got 2 or 3 more books coming out this year. Versus there were certain years where like we were lucky if we got like 2.
Right.
So yeah, it's gone from the new hotness to the standard, and now I think it's going into later game like 3.5 Pathfinder edition, or Pathfinder, I should say, end of version 1 Pathfinder, where there's a lot of shit. You're coming in fresh. And to get on the circle back, if you're coming in fresh, this is a great buy for a new player, new DM.
Yes.
You want a bunch of stuff, excellent value.
Yes.
But again, if you're coming in fresh and you're not listening to someone, folks like us to kind of like target your purchases, you don't need to get everything. It's gonna seem a little overwhelming now.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, as we approach the event horizon of 10 years of 5th edition,
My God.
which I don't want to fucking think about anyways, because it came out 2014, 2015?
I believe so.
Yeah, we're closer to there than to the beginning. I've already seen
Closer
some
to 10 than
things.
5.
Right. I've already seen some allusions. That's not a word. That's not the word. I've seen some whispers of, the honestly inevitable arrival of 6th edition or a 5.5, which I don't know how to feel about it. Like, I mean, it's inevitable. They're going to have to revamp this whole thing and take whatever they've learned from 5th edition and rejudge, do some housekeeping.
Well, that's just the thing. So let's get into the merger in D&D Beyond in general, because recently Hasbro and Wizards outright purchased D&D Beyond. So instead of just being a licensee of D&D content, D&D Beyond is D&D Beyond now, or is D&D now.
Yeah. And for clarification, if you don't know, Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast. So Hasbro is the parent company of Wizards of the Coast. And this is, again, another place where I bring up a post on D&D Beyond where they did post about, explaining the change of ownership to a certain extent. Of course, obviously they're not going to, write anything negative or disparaging on their own website.
About the people who are buying them.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not going to write anything that's going to be discouraging to their consumers, their customers, because that is what we are when we are using this website, even before this buyout. But they are doing their best to reassure people that like not really anything is changing. There's a couple of things in the terms and conditions that are changing, but like everything is more or less just going to be the same. I think that the benefits of this purchase is there are going to be seen further down the road. It's not just direct access; they're in there. There will be a way for Wizards to work with the D&D Beyond to help do that kind of spring cleaning that's kind of necessary to streamline it again.
Oh yeah. So same thing like you. I looked through a lot of the videos they posted up on this on their YouTube channel, the AMAs that they've put up, and right now it's pretty dry. It's pretty dry sort of stuff of just like they're figuring out where to, what system to move their servers to or their storage of, how everything's run, and that's they'll say it themselves. It's not the sexiest thing in the world to really talk about. So at least at this stage, we're not going to see any major changes. But in that same spring cleaning one, they're basically pointing out that, okay, we're already making this big move. There's a list of known issues here. So, especially with like content being in the wrong place. So, yeah, to your point, they, D&D Beyond made D&D a lot easier. 80. I checked it. I checked what Wizards themselves or an article from it, but like 80% of D&D games today are played digitally. So like we might, I don't think it'll ever go away, like physical sheets, but we might be the last like generation or group of folks who like started out with like, you know, paper, pen and paper. That's how you start, that's how you play the game, and this was like a little extra thing. Now D&D Beyond, like that is D&D. People, there going to be a lot of people probably already are people who started to play D&D today, and they just know it's this. Like, there's this app, and it does all the things for me, and I don't really have to do a lot of math myself. And it just kind of, like, rolls the dice for me. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is today. And now that they don't have to have that extra burden of, like, being a partner, and now they're going to be, like, they're going to be in-house for, you know, Wizards itself. Hopefully they'll have the funding and the latitude to actually put a lot of polish on their systems that hasn't been there, because probably because they're you know, scrambling to get the newest content out, or keep the system up to date. Then some of these other smaller things just kind of fall by the wayside. But those smaller things are the things that the really dedicated fans notice. So like one of the things that was called out, which I personally have grievances with as well, is the armor, the armor artificer subclass, because once you hit a certain level, each piece of your armor becomes a different item slot on your character to infuse, and then also the number of infusions you can use increases, and then the number of attunement slots increases. So like it breaks a lot of the rules of normal D&D, and they just never anticipated that. And it's been out for years, and they have just never fixed it. And they know. They're like, yes, like, we know it's a known issue, it's a known jank, and, you know, we just have not been able to fix it up until this point. They're finally looking into getting, like, a generic item in the system that can be completely customized, because their homebrew system, again, that has been the largest thorn in my side to doing anything outside the books. If I do something on Roll20 homebrew, it's so easy. But on D&D Beyond, it's god awful, and they know it. They go into the articles and they're like, we know, like, it's extremely limited, and that was just the limitations of the time. Yeah, even when I was setting up Layla to set up, because that's a homebrew race. Granted, I was just like inputting stuff off of like a character sheet I found online. You know, a stat block I found online. It was such a process. It took me like an entire afternoon to do it. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah. I mean, once you do it a few times, like, you figure it out, but it's not as intuitive as I feel like it could be. Oh, yeah. And I will say, it's not you figure it out, is that you figure out the hack for it, or you figure out the workaround for it. It doesn't, whenever you're homebrewing something in D&D Beyond, unless it's fairly simple, or like a variant of something that already exists, it doesn't work the way you envision or want it to work in the system. There's always some sort of like weird caveat or weird hoop you have to jump through to get it to work right. To even kind of replicate the thing that you're looking for. So hopefully this new generic update that hopefully is just like a freeform item or thing that you can edit and just do whatever you want with. Like, I cannot believe they haven't had something like that since the beginning of this. It's like Roll20 has done that for years before this even existed, and I don't even know. But yeah. So hopefully now that they have the funding, the kind of go ahead from D&D Beyond, and they don't have, like I said, the burden of kind of maintaining the partnership. Now they are part of the house. They can get the polish on there and really make it much better, make it more, like you say, intuitive to use. Yeah. I mean, that really sums it up. There's not really anything that I could like add to that. I was going to say other cool things to point out. The Phandelver's Mine module is now free for everyone. They've basically just said, okay, that is the starter quest. It is officially the starter quest. Everyone
I was surprised that it wasn't already free. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know that it wasn't already free. Because you assume that, like, it's the starter kit.
Yeah.
It's the starter kit adventure. It should be free.
It should just be free.
There are so many other books that they could be making that they can sell. They can let this one be free.
Yep. And then also right now, so by the time this goes out, this is going to be done. But the Acquisitions Incorporated book is also free. I think for a few more days. So if you haven't already gotten that, get that, Lisa, so you can just get that free shit. But in celebration of the acquisition, they made the Acquisitions Inc. Source book free for everyone for like a week or two. So that's fun. And then I will throw it out there. For anyone listening who is curious about this, follow their AMA threads on D&D Beyond, because they will announce whenever, because I think they do it monthly. They'll have some, important person or someone who's deep, in the system right now, answering questions about their role within D&D Beyond or within Wizards. And I look at those AMA threads, and there's usually only like a few people throwing out a lot of questions. So next one that comes up, I'm going to try and throw in some questions in there, just like, what's going on? What's this person's role? Like, how's this going to play into the merger and that sort of thing. So if you are so inclined, jump in there as well, because they have a lot of leeway. There's a lot of empty air that they could still be filling with those AMAs, because they don't go on super long. And like I said, it's only like 2 or 3 people asking all the questions.
Yeah, those are definitely valuable resources.
But yeah, future speculation, like we say, we hope this is for the good. It's I think it's going to be a net good for the players overall, because I think D&D Beyond was the game changer. I think it's what they wanted 4th edition to be when they wanted to have a digital version, kind of attached to it.
Yeah.
And D&D Beyond just did it, and now they've just outright bought it. And at this point, I think this is going to be D&D. People are going to like this. The books are still going to be there. Pen and paper, is still going to be a thing for older players. But then folks coming in new, I think they're probably going to have a QR code for D&D Beyond on the thing and be like, hey, this does all the stuff for you. This is your gateway drug. It's free to start. And I think, that's just going to be it. I think, like I said, I don't think the books will ever go away, because having these books physically is great, especially for like collectors. I think there's always going to be a market for that. But I think their importance physically is going to shrink.
Yeah.
And now it's the digital releases are going to be the thing, and like they make it attractive, because if you pre-order, you get a bit of a discount if you pre-order, and you'll get extra content on D&D Beyond. You'll get like character portraits or character frames or special dice. Yeah, for Multiverse, you got like spectral dice, so it's like you roll and it's like the stars. And another one they have is like the planar summoning dice, which I might actually buy, even though like digital dice, like it sounds crazy, but you can do fun things with those digital dice that you literally can't do in real life. So like the planar dice, you roll a 1 or a 20 and it summons a weird monster. And you see it happen on your dice, and like everyone sees it, because if you're all playing on the same campaign, everyone just sees this weird thing happen when you roll your dice. So they have these little perks.
Yeah, and it's like, what's a digital? I think buying digital dice as a dice hoarder, buying digital dice is a little silly, but I do think it does add. I really like the way that they implemented the sharing the roles and stuff in there in campaigns, because when you are playing digitally, that gives you like 80% of the same joy as when you're sitting at the table and somebody rolls a natural 20. Like, you still get a little bit of that, or a 1, or, you know...
it's about to be a 20, and then it flops over, and it's like a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the wacky things that they do, because I don't go out of my way to buy the digital dice, because yes, like you, I think part of it seems a little silly, but the ones I get from the books, because you just get them, you're not paying anything extra, you pre-order it, you just get them with the book. I will absolutely cycle through them, like for games that I'm playing. I switch them around. It's not just I don't just go with the defaults of like, oh, this was actually kind of cool. Like one is like one of the ones I have is like a meat dice or something. I
like the fuzzy dice. The fuzzy dice are the ones that I...
You see?
It's like I'm talking shit, but also I use them.
I have them and use them.
Yeah, exactly. Like...
The meat dice are so weird because when you roll it, like leaves a blood stain and it sounds all squishy. And then I use it in person. Like I just have my phone out and we're playing, and I'm rolling and you see. I was like, I made the wrong choice here.
Yeah, the sound effects are definitely
the sound effects, the visual effects. It gives you that little it gives you an experience that you can't get with normal physical dice, like summoning a random monster when you roll a nat 20 or something. That's just kind of cool. So D&D Beyond, keep doing things like that. Hopefully this merger will still give you all the freedom to be as creative and strange with some of this stuff as you have been. I've gone through a merger myself. There's always the situation of like, people are made redundant. I don't know how much of a thing that's going to be with these guys. Hopefully it's not too much, because D&D Beyond was providing their own service and then basically having the connection to Wizards for the content.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see, maybe like on the community manager level or lore master level or something, but hopefully there's not too much of that redundancy. Hopefully no people are let go during this. I don't think I've ever seen a merger where no one gets let go, but hopefully the folks who were like the owners or whoever who made so much money they don't need to work anymore.
Yeah, that's always the hope.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and hopefully it's not a situation of Wizards down the road saying our way or the highway, with their creativity and the openness to like be flexible, to have change, all of that. Hopefully they still have that sort of leeway under the Wizards umbrella still. That's the biggest one, because once you're part of a larger corporation, shareholders are key. I mean, that was the case before, but now it's going to be even more so. But,
yeah.
Hey, the juice of D&D is like creativity and content, and good content, and not pissing off the fans.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will just be a net positive. But I think for everyone in the community, it's going to be keep an eye on this and see what happens to the boat. Does it go up or does it sink?
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, like, I don't know, we don't really have a choice in it about whether like D&D Beyond gets bought or not, or and whether they do anything with it or not. The choice that we do end up having is like, if things start going a way that you don't like, just don't use it. Yeah,
there'll always be an alternative.
There will always be, the physical books and pen and paper, and we just go back to the good old days.
I'm pretty sure even if the quality on D&D Beyond drops off, like a competitor will come up.
Yeah,
I think not under house, and they'll probably do it themselves.
That's the beauty of the community, is that life finds a way.
Life finds a way. If we're not going to take away any other lesson from today, there it is. Life finds a way.
Yeah, we will find a way to play our silly little game.
Yep.
I think that's really all we really have to say about it. Unless you have more.
No.
I mean, you had a lot to say.
Yeah, I did my research, and like I said, I've gone through a similar situation in my career before. So, yeah, there's just in corporate America in general, there's a lot of potential for bad. Let's hope that isn't the situation here, and let's wait and see. That's all we can do.
Well, with that, that's enough of us.
Let's call that an episode.
That's a sode.
That's a sode.
Like, comment, subscribe, share. Yeah.
Yes. Subscribe on YouTube. We're on the we're on
go
the
cross platform. Yeah.
YouTube and Spotify are our biggest ones. If you're going to support us there, please.
And if you can't think of anything nice to say in the comments, just
say something mean.
Say something mean. That works too. Or just like, what's your favorite source book? Or actually, genuine curiosity. I wonder which character race type in Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse is the one that you
Multiverse of Monsters. I kept mixing it up too.
Wait, fuck, you're right. What am I thinking of? Masters of the Universe?
Doctor Strange and the
Multiverse of Madness. Yeah.
Although
it's too many multiverses. It's too many multiverses.
You're getting He-Man, Doctor Strange, and D&D all combined into one.
We only need one universe. Kids these days in their multi-universes. Back in my day, we had one universe and we were happy about it.
We liked it.
And we liked it.
You gotta make a character who's just like an old codger. You're not bad at that.
Oh yeah,
just to get off my lawn.
I've been a get off my lawn type of person since I was born. Stepped out the womb, just like, somebody hand me a Werther's original and let me sit here and watch Price is Right and do not bother me.
Okay, now we're at the end of the episode. Alright. Now we're done. Goodbye.
Oops All Dragons is a group effort. Our show is edited by Noel Hernandez, our theme was composed by Brendan Lyons, and our logo art is by Azif On Q. Links to more of their work and their social media will be in the show notes. Find us on YouTube and Spotify, and check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Oops All Dragons.